The 60/40 portfolio, this thing was dead. Is it coming back to life, or is this thing just a zombie? I'm going to help you with that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. I was one of many that called the 60/40 portfolio dead. Back in late 2020, early 2021, my co-hosts on our talk show that airs right here on this channel, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notification. It's fantastic. It's also on podcast as well, but they laughed at me when I said, "Guy, 60/40 is dead." I mean, stocks are overvalued, and therefore they could continue to emerge and push higher, but there's going to be some volatility ahead. Bonds are way overvalued, and based on how inflation was going at that time, that trend, it seemed obvious, just the timing unsure. Interest rates would be rising, that would put pressure on bonds. 60/40 is dead. And there's been many other financial experts who have then followed suit and said similar things or the same thing. Last year, 60/40 got pummeled. It was a challenging year. It's the worst year in the stock market since 2008. You know that. Worst year in the bond market since the bond market started, the bond index started. If you kind of synthesize and look at bonds in general, not just the index, the worst year in the bond market since the ratification of the Constitution, guys. That's how awful it was. And a 60/40 model is a diversified stock, 60% of it, and then hopefully diversified bonds, 40% of it. So it's a weighting, 60% stock, 40% bonds. This is an appropriate mix for many of you that are nearing retirement or in retirement, depending on your withdrawal needs, and it just got clobbered. Last year, 2022, okay, was the third worst performance in a year for a 60/40 portfolio since 1950. I think we'd call that unusual, right? So it was extraordinarily painful. And let me again talk to you, extraordinarily painful for those of you right on the cusp of retirement or in retirement. Odds are you've lost confidence, you've lost faith, you're looking for safety, okay? Take a look at this chart. It's the third worst. And here's what's unique. Down 16, almost 17%. It was worse during the year. It was down 20, a little bit over 20% at one point, a 60/40 portfolio, and things stabilized a little bit in the bond market. Things came back in the final quarter a little bit, okay, to bring this performance. But here's the difference. Here's the difference. In 2022, so it's normal for that 60% diversified stock portfolio in a really bad year in stocks, that's going to go down a chunk, okay? But usually when that happens, bonds tend to hold their own. Maybe during the most extreme panic time period, bonds will go down because there's part of this, flight to safety and get out of everything. I don't want to own anything. So bonds may go down during those crucial couple of months, but on an annualized basis, usually bonds are stable, or they maybe add a little bit of return as opposed to also be negative. 2022, not only was the stock market down 18, 19%, the bond market was down 13, 14, right? So extraordinarily, it added insult to injury. When you compare that to 2008 lined up exactly with what I said. I mean, in the fall, bonds did terrible. When everything was falling, people lost confidence in the entire financial system. They got out of everything, and only the wise investors were able to ride through it and get that bounce that was awaiting them just a few months later, but felt so uncertain and unpredictable. And so bonds actually for all of 2028 were up a couple percent. Okay, so they actually added, and yes, 2008 was worse from an overall 60/40 portfolio, but that 40% bonds actually helped your portfolio, okay? In 2001, 2002, those were bad years in the market. A 60/40 model was down. Bonds actually were positive. So your bond side actually helped balance your return. In 1974, bonds were down just a little bit. In 1968, bonds were down just a little bit. They weren't down to the magnitude that we felt in 2022. 60/40 was dead. Is 60/40 still dead? Could it come back to life, or would it be a zombie, right? Would it come back and show signs of life but actually be evil? Well, the answer lies in bonds, and that answer starts with the Fed. if the Fed needs to or continues to raise interest rates, bonds and interest rates move in a teeter-totter. As bonds or as interest rates go up, bond investments go down. And that's part of what made 2022 so painful is we had been going off of 40 years where interest rates, not every day, every week, every month, but we're pretty consistently going down. Interest rates were going down. And that meant bond investments, not only were you earning your interest on those bond investments, but they were going up in value. They were appreciating in value. And the exact opposite happened at the end of 2021 in all of 22. Interest rates shot up and bond investments dropped very, very quickly, faster again over a year time period since the ratification of the Constitution. We started. So if the Fed feels that they need to continue to raise interest rates, that could be challenging for the bond market. So no one knows the future, but what do we think? So last year, 2022, interest rates started effectively at 0. The Fed had positioned and said, well, we might be raising by a quarter of a percent a handful of times a year. They ended up doing 18 of those %. They bundled some of those, right? So the interest rates ended the year over 4%. That's an enormous increase. From about 0 to over 4, that's an enormous increase. And of course, that would be an awful experience for bonds. Therefore, do we think the Fed's going to need to do that again this year? I hope not. I hope that would be extremely unlikely. In fact, the base case, I'm not so sure about this, but by many economists and financial experts is that the Fed won't need to raise interest rates much at all. And they may even start to reduce rates later in the year. All of that suggests easier climate for the bond market and bond investors. That 40% might be stable now and will have some volatility, but might be more stable. In fact, could even appreciate. So then the 60% side, we know that a really awful year in the stock market, even if the bonds do okay, it's going to drag down a 60-40 portfolio. Well, no one knows the future, and odds are we're still dealing with so much, financial challenges, economic challenges coming out of all the money printing and inflation and all of that sort of stuff, supply chain issues, labor markets all gunked up, all that. I mean, nothing is normal right now. Nothing is normal, and that's going to create abnormalities in the financial markets, and yet there's some cautious optimism in the stock market. There's a little bit more confidence that maybe we could hit a soft landing. Soft landing meaning inflation gets under control without a massive recession. I don't know. I was definitely in the camp that was not possible. Now I think it's possible. I wouldn't say it's probable, but it seems possible. Therefore, that 60% side could hold up as well. So guys, 60-40 might have come back to life. Not Frankenstein's monster, but come back to life for real. We'll have to see. Here's the point, and here's the planning point. If you're in your 30s, you're not 60-40. You shouldn't be. If you were, it's because you were scared, okay? If you're in your 30s, shouldn't be 60-40. If you're in your 40s, shouldn't be 60-40. If you're in your 50s, maybe at the end of your 60s or 50s, you're maybe thinking about 60-40. It's those of you that are near retirement or at retirement that have had this portfolio, and I know you're worried. I know you're scared. I know you're searching for safety. You're searching for something reliable. And it's at this time that I would give you some hope that the worst of the bond market, at least for your 60-40 portfolio that usually can weather just about any storm and has down years and up years, but can usually ride through pretty well, did not do that last year. And there's some hope that it's going to be able to do that moving forward and this year. Is that the right strategy for you? I don't know. You got to work with your certified financial planner. I think it is for a lot of people, but I would also want you to make sure you're using multiple strategies so you're not just relying on this. What if we do see, another big challenge, an unforeseen issue, the Fed makes an enormous mistake, something like that, and there's this crisis of confidence? You should have multiple strategies that can balance out and diversify each other, not having all your eggs in one basket. Work with your certified financial planner on that. I stand here telling you, I think 60-40 is back alive. Back alive. That doesn't mean it won't be volatile and that it's, nothing but green pastures, but I think it's back alive where it once was dead. I think it is back. Work with your certified financial planner on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K. WiseMoneyShow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@Korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.